Hi, and welcome to Deep Dialogues, 12 extraordinary conversations I'm having with amazing female soul stewards who at this time are transmitting their unconditional love, empathy, and compassion about the creation of a new level of living, and therefore helping us to form ideas about a brave new world that we can create together. Have a wonderful time listening in. Fantastic. Gus, how fantastic that you're here. And Dirish and Lisa and Laura and Katie and Wendy, all these wonderful people saying wonderful things about Julie. Okay, so apologies to you and dear Julie, and apologies to all of you wonderful people. You've been extraordinarily patient. Sarah, it's wonderful to see you. So as usual, we just had a few technical hitches, but we're now here. I'm going to introduce Julie to you so that you have a configuration around who she is. Now, Julie is a very renowned psychic and medical intuitive who also has worked or works as an inventor, an author, a podcaster, and a serial entrepreneur. I love that bit. In fact, Julie's surgical device inventions have sold globally, and she's founded 9 companies in 5 different industries. As a psychic, Julie can sense what medical conditions and illnesses a person has and facilitate powerful energetic healings. I indeed received my own healing, and it was absolutely extraordinary, which maybe we'll go into a little bit. I haven't talked to Julie about it. It was absolutely amazing, so I thank you deeply. So Julie communicates with spirit, scans animals, accesses people's past lives, and removes ghosts from buildings. Her book, Angelic Attendants, What Really Happens as We Transition from This Life into the Next, describes a series of events that involves angels, deceased family members, friends, pets, and countless serendipitous and miraculous moments. Julie's latest book, Angel Messages for Kids, is a picture book that allows angels to answer the questions children ask at this time. And her infamous Ask Julie Ryan podcast occurs every week, which is heard by millions in over 100 countries throughout the world. And of course, I will make sure that that AskJulieRyan.com will be on the Facebook page immediately afterwards. So anyway, thank you everybody for your patience. Julie, so warm welcome.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for being so patient.
It's a virtue, I hear.
It is a virtue. It's something that...
that's what they say anyways, whoever they are, right?
Exactly, they.
Right.
By nature, it's my biggest karmic weakness. I'm impatient. And I have a feeling that many visionaries that I've talked to over the years have constantly said, yes, well, it's to do with the time displacement, because after all, being a visionary means you see it all. And so the question is, well, why can't it happen right now? And then we begin to realize that we need to give ourselves to divine will. So tell me, where did this all begin with you?
Well, I learned how to do woo-woo. That's what I call this, that I do, as you so eloquently, of course, coming from you, eloquently stated. I'm an inventor and an entrepreneur and a businesswoman. I say I'm a businesswoman who learned how to do woo-woo, and I'm a buffet of psychicness. Because once you tap into spirit, you can do it all. And that's what I teach in my classes. And people from all walks of life that have no experience with this. The only prerequisite is they have to speak English. And so that's pretty good. I think people from 8 countries have taken my class, which is a blast, by the way. So I am not, Stewart, one of those psychics who's had dead people chasing her since childhood. If I did, I didn't know it, let alone what I would have done with that information had I known. And I learned how to do this when I got a book from a girlfriend called Anatomy of the Spirit by a woman named Carolyn Mace, who called herself a medical intuitive. And I thought, what the heck is that? I had been in the medical supply industry for quite a while at that point and was obviously interested in healing and facilitating healing in operating rooms and other departments of hospitals. And so I read her book and I wanted to know more. And back then, this was almost 30 years ago, Stewart, so we didn't have the internet yet. So I did the old-fashioned thing, and I went to a bookstore. And then I thought, well, I'm going to see what else is in there. And there was this book by a former NASA physicist named Barbara Brennan called Hands of Light. And it talks about using quantum physics, basically, the energy field, to help facilitate healing. And I read that book, and then I wanted to know more. I have to throw in here that my husband affectionately refers to me as an information suck. He says, I have never met anybody that's just so naturally curious about everything, which is true. I am. And so I called her school to see if she had someone in my area teaching. She did. I studied with that woman for 6 years, paid the equivalent of getting a PhD or an MD. And now I've condensed over 25 years of experience into a 4-week class that I teach online. That's just amazing. The people who've taken it, physicians, scientists, professors, housewives, construction workers, others, and then they take this information and they go back and they utilize it in their lives and the lives that they touch. May I tell you one quick, cute story about one of my students?
Yes. No, I mean, it's so wonderful to hear you. So please don't make it quick. Tell us the story.
One of my students, and this is my favorite story, because I've had, these big, well-educated, in some cases, really well-known public figures take my class. And I have this one gal from Louisiana who took my class, and she's this teeny little, she looks like a little fairy almost, like a woodland fairy. And she has an archery academy. And she wanted to learn how to communicate with spirit and communicate with animals, because she leads a tour every year to Canada, and they go bow and arrow hunting for bear. And she wanted to be able to communicate with the bear to be sure the bear that they were hunting was ready to die. Which I think is just a remarkable reason to want to take a class to learn how to be intuitive and communicate with spirit and facilitate healing. So that's my favorite of everybody.
That's extraordinary, isn't it? Which is the ability that I'm told. I worked for 3 years in the early 90s with a Native American shaman in New Mexico. And he gave me many of the secrets of his people, the Tewa. And one of them is that whenever they were hunting, being Plains Indians or Mesa Indians, Native American peoples, that they always asked for the spirit of the animal, if the spirit of the animal was ready to give itself to their community for food.
Thank you for sharing that with me. I've never heard that before, but that makes total sense. And that's what this woman is doing. And I just love that story. So I'm going to add your part to the equation, because how wonderful. I'm sure that's been done since the beginning of time.
So how extraordinary that there you are with all of these major people finding you. And it seems from what you described that many come, A, because of your reputation, but B, because they're intuitively or psychically drawn on some level to inquire. And then they meet you and they go into a very deep place of profound soulfulness as they begin to measure, as it were, all of the radical information or experiences that they go through. And do you find that the people that come also move through a process of healing themselves?
Oh, absolutely. And we're all born with intuitive capabilities. We've all had situations, Stewart, where we think of someone and they call us, or they send us a text, or we get an email from them. We say, oh my gosh, what a coincidence. I was just thinking of you. Well, there was no coincidence there. That's what the Aboriginal tribes have been doing in Australia for millennia, communicating across vast distances. So we all have the ability. It's just learning to enhance it and then just practice and develop it further. And I find that people are led to this, and I find that it resonates with most people, even if they're afraid of it. That's usually what happens if people say, well, I don't believe that, and it's evil, or it's whatever nonsense they come up with. It's their own fear, because all spirit is pure love. There's no evil about any spirit ever.
Could you just say that again, please?
All spirit is pure love. And so anyone who we think, gosh, who was the most awful person that ever lived? They're burning in hell for eternity. Well, no, they're not. All the snarkiness of their personality stays with the body when somebody dies. And their spirit is all pure love, and it's in heaven. And heaven is all around us. Heaven is not up on a cloud to the right someplace, but it's just all around us. It's just non-physical. So all spirit is pure love. And that's what I tell people. If you feel like you're getting a communication and you're being led to do something and it feels bad, that's not coming from spirit. That's your own head. That's your own fear, how you're interpreting things.
This is so beautiful to hear, which is why, because it's completely in concurrence with all that I've worked with over the last 45 years. And so it's so wonderful to hear you say it, because a number of our colleagues often say something different. I've been on so many different radio shows about the angels that I work with. And the first question that the radio interviewer or the host wants to ask is, okay, well, that's okay, I guess, but now let's talk about the fallen angels. And all they want to do is automatically switch. And of course, then they hear me say, well, actually, I need you to know that I don't believe that there are fallen angels.
Exactly.
I believe that that's actually an intellectual construct of the early church and the early temple to give some reasoning behind the darkness of human behavior when it perpetrates darkness or cruelty.
And to control the masses, because we're all hardwired for fear. We're all looking for that saber-toothed tiger to come around the corner and eat us for lunch. Even though he's been dead for millions of years. But we're all hardwired for fear, and fear is a very powerful motivator. Fear is still used today to motivate people.
Yes,
I mean, in
absolutely.
Every culture.
Yeah. And so with this level of communication, you see, it brings to the forefront of our consciousness the necessity for us all to recognize that anything that we see beyond ourselves is a creation of our own psyche, is a creation of our own consciousness, both in terms of waking and sleeping consciousness. I'm fascinated by the way that you then began to see through intuitive skills a series of surgical instruments that you then brought into invention. Is that correct?
No, I did those before I started studying the energy medicine. And the way that I learned this was it was a transfer of energy. And that's what I do with my students. In my classes, I say 10% of it is lecture and practice in the times that we're together, which is 2 hours, 4 Saturdays in a row online. But 90% of it is the transfer of energy at a super high vibration level. And people aren't able to reach it if they don't know what it feels like. So I hold that vibration really high, and it really blows people's minds, Stewart, because they come in and they think, I'm really interested in this, but I really don't think I'll ever be able to do it in the first week after the first hour. In the first hour's lecture, second hour's practice. Then the first week of practice, they're all doing remote viewing, and it just blows their minds. It's so fun. And I think we tend to make it way more difficult and way more complicated than it is. It's not. It's innate. We all have the ability. It's kind of like somebody teaches you how to turn on a light switch. Well, you know how to turn on a light switch then. This is the same thing.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, bearing in mind that you have an interface with the world of science, we know that there are a number of major scientists, evidently not the people that are called to your course, but there are a number of scientists who would debunk anything that we're talking about.
Right. And they're fun when I get to talk with them, because, which is not very often because they don't come search me out, but every once in a while I'll have somebody say, well, you need to prove this to me. And I'll say, well, no, really, I don't. If you want to talk to me about it, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine. You're welcome to believe whatever works for you. I don't really care. I don't, whatever makes you happy. But the funny thing is the people who are very religious, and they'll say, well, this is evil, what you're doing. And I'll say, well, do you pray? And they'll say, yes, of course I pray. And I'll say, well, to whom do you pray? And they'll say, Jesus or God or Buddha or whomever. And I'll say, oh, so is that person with whom you're talking, are they in the room with you when you're talking with them? And they'll say, well, no. I'll say, well, where are they? Well, they're a spirit. And I'll say, oh, so you're talking to spirits and you're asking them to help you and you're asking them to give you guidance? and they get it. It's like a light bulb goes off, Stuart. It's so funny. And then they'll say, well, it's not the same thing. I'll say, well, it is the same thing, because the Bible and all literature in all cultures talk about spirits, talk about, I was mentioning to you, we were talking about Colin Firth. We watched The Secret Garden. How old's that book? Probably the late 1800s it was written. And throughout the book, there are spirits that come in of deceased loved ones. And all literature has that woven in. The Bible has it woven in. Every holy text has it woven in. So just since we've become more well-educated in the past 100, maybe 150 years as a culture, we want proof for everything. Well, we get lots of proof, you and I, don't we? When we talk to deceased loved ones and they give us specific information that there's no way we could know. And that really blows people's minds when that happens. It's called evidential. I guess that they're called evidential psychics. I don't know. I'm not much into labels. I just do what I do, and this is how I do it, kind of a thing.
You're refreshingly grounded. I mean, you are so grounded. Well, and so therefore, you for us, I hope everybody's feeling this, you are a prime candidate for what I'm always either exercising in people or referring to as a state of blissful embodiment.
Oh, thank you. What a compliment. Goodness.
It is very, very true. It's, something I've been teaching for a long time, and you have it. I mean, it started for me, as you know, with actors, and then with public personalities, because if they're not in their bodies, if they're not really grounded, if they don't have a sense of center or a sense of gravitas, which is a physiological, as we know, it's a sensation, then they're lost. But what's wonderful in terms of the way that you've just told the story is that even if you have someone who is energetically challenging, that you don't become fazed. You just smile and graciously continue to involve them in a conversation which gives the impression that very benignly you're just second guessing them, so that they can then begin to understand, oh, well, yes, I do see spirits, etc., etc.
Well, it's looking at it perhaps from a different perspective. And the funniest thing, Stuart, though, is when I have that conversation with somebody, I'll say, obviously this isn't for you. It makes you uncomfortable. So that's fine. They'll say, oh, no, let's talk about it. Every time. I can't think of a time when somebody walked away. Everybody's interested in it. They're just afraid of it.
Yes. Why do you feel that is?
Because to your point earlier, with the masses, controlling the masses with religion and cultures, with all these evil spirits and all this gargoyles, my goodness, where you are, the gargoyles, who came up with that? And it's interesting when people tell me about that they've had an evil spirit in their home, and I'll say, well, tell me about it. Tell me what it looks like. Well, it looks like a gargoyle usually. And I'll say, well, that's your frame of reference, number one. Number two, spirits vibrate at a very high speed, at a very high frequency, and our reality is very dense. So when a spirit is coming through a wooden door, they look perhaps distorted as they're coming through, as if a robber who had a pair of pantyhose on his head to distort their face. And I'll say they're all pure love. There's nothing evil. It's just we obviously interpret things based on our frame of reference, and throughout the ages, religions and cultures and literature and movies and TV and the entertainment industry has propelled that. And if they can get an emotion out of somebody, it's a good thing. It buys tickets to movies and it sells books.
And so also within this context, would you say that you're not a strong believer in possession?
No, I don't believe in that at all.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have so many people that come to me convinced that they're possessed. And then when I take them through the process, they begin to realize that actually they're really, really powerful, intuitive, psychic beings that are just distorting through whatever shame mechanism or fear imprint is within their psyche. Yeah.
Exactly. And the other thing I think that's so important to mention is I turn my abilities on and off at will. It takes
Yeah.
me a nanosecond to turn them on and off. I don't walk around scanning people. Well, think about it. Number one, it would be an invasion of their privacy, which I think is unethical. Number two, it's none of my business. And number three, I don't really want to know. Imagine being in a crowd of people saying, oh, well, that one's got strep throat. That one's got whatever. That one has whatever. So I turn my abilities on and off. And sometimes people will say to me, well, what are you seeing? And I said, well, I'm not seeing anything. I don't have my radar on. Well, turn on your radar. I say, okay. So it's really that ability to turn it on and off and
Yes.
and have just a regular life. And
Yeah.
this is just an extra skill set that enhances it.
Yes.
And helps others is
Yeah.
how I look at it.
And are there any environments that you would consider to be absolutely balanced or maybe sacred or hallowed, where you would just simply switch on and leave your abilities completely open to scan because of being completely enthralled by what you're engaging with?
I don't know that I've ever experienced that. Certainly, I have had times where I've been in, for instance, a cathedral, and it just feels, you know, you walk in and it's just, you get goosebumps from walking in. But I don't know that I've ever done that. Two quick fun stories. One is there's a place near our home, Stewart, called Gravity Hill. And my son was visiting from Los Angeles, and he and my husband and I were out near, it was about an hour from our house. And I said, oh, we're near Gravity Hill. Let's go check it out. Well, Gravity Hill is this hill that comes down to a 4-lane road. There's a stop sign. And what you're supposed to do is put your car in neutral and your car's pulled back up the hill, which works 5 miles an hour. It's amazing. And we did it 3 times. And my husband and my son were laughing at me. And I said, let's go try it. Oh, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Well, it worked. So of course, I wanted to see what was going on. So I turned on my radar and I scanned it. And I thought there may be an Indian burial ground up the hill or something. And there was further down the road, but it was a vortex that was on top of this hill. And people from all over the world, scientists and universities, have come to study Gravity Hill outside of Birmingham, Alabama. So when you come visit me, Stewart, I'll take you to Gravity Hill.
Please do. I would love to.
It's so fun. That's story number one. Story number two, I was in a historic hotel. Historic for the US is a couple hundred years old. You know, for you guys, that's nothing. But over here, that's a big deal. And I was in Austin, Texas. It's called the Driscoll Hotel. And it was founded by a guy who made his fortune off of selling cattle to the Confederate Army during the Civil War. Fine. After lunch, I was lecturing to a group of executives the next day there. And so I went there for lunch and I went to the concierge and I said, may I have a tour? Because this is a beautiful hotel. She found the little bellman. He gave me a tour. We go upstairs outside of these ballrooms. They had kind of a lobby area, if you will, outside of the ballrooms. And I smelled cigar smoke. And I thought, there is no way this hotel is going to let somebody smoke a cigar inside in this day and age. So I turned on my radar, and here comes Colonel Driscoll walking through this lobby smoking his cigar. And I thought, ooh, so I'm going to see what else I can do. So I left my radar on for that. And one other really fun, quick story. In one of the ballrooms, there are 8 gilded mirrors, huge gilded mirrors that line the walls. And they have a cameo on top of them carved into the wood. And the little bellman said, we think these came from Emperor Maximilian's palace in Mexico City. We believe this is his wife, Carlotta. And I'm getting, this isn't Carlotta. This is something like Jocinda or something like that. This is Jocinda, his mistress. And I thought, oh, so I asked the bellman, I said, have you ever heard of Jocinda? And he said, no. And I said, okay. So I just called them both in to see who it was. These 2 spirits show up, Stewart, dressed in ball gowns, diamonds, hoop skirts, silk, amazing, turn of into the 20th century, so late 1800s. And I said, who's that cameo on that mirror? And Jocinda said, yeah, it's me. So fine. So long story short, I was, the next day I was in a parking lot of a store. I was running into a store. This woman, I happened to talk to this woman in the parking lot, and she was a publisher of a book. that had just been submitted on the Driscoll Hotel. She welcomed me to Austin. I said, thank you, blah, 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 blah. I went to the Driscoll yesterday. She said, oh, you know, it's haunted. I said, oh, I have stories for you. So she said, would you write the afterword for the book? Mm-hmm. It just went to press. So I did on the plane on the way home. Mm-hmm. And just for kicks, I Googled Emperor Maximilian Jocinda Carlotta. Well, guess what? There's all kinds of documentation that Jocinda was his mistress.
Right.
And so that's what I love about this work, is so often we can corroborate the information we get from spirit with historical documents.
Yeah.
So that was an example, I guess, that came to mind of leaving my radar on for at least the tour through the Driscoll Hotel.
Well, you know, and I asked the question because you are so full of joie de vivre, and you have this wonderful curiosity that we were talking about earlier. And for me, it appears that all of this is such fun.
Oh, so fun. Oh,
which
yeah.
means that, you know, my experience of you is that your psychic abilities have a level of accuracy about them, which is beautiful on one level, but immensely reassuring on another. And so I just wondered, you know, that there you are having a ball in a very special place, just leaving it on, you know, because I understand the attunement so very specifically in my own process, because the difficulty with my abilities as a child was that I was just way far too open. And had difficulties learning, as I was sharing with you earlier. So the easiest thing to do was just to close down. And then as an adult, when I began to see the ability of switching on and switching off, as you were saying, or turning the volume up, turning the volume down, it became huge fun. And I was very aware of going into public places, of not moving too fast after sitting, giving sessions to people, you know, psychic readings to people all day. Otherwise, I'd go in and immediately see all of these disincarnate people walking around in these major areas, simply because most of my time has been spent in this city. And of course, as you were saying, this city is very old.
Well, and once they lift the travel restrictions, I'm going to come over. You and I are going to have we would have so much fun.
Yeah.
Going to all those old buildings in London. Holy mackerel. That would be just so much fun. And I think the key is spirit is pure love and pure joy. Yes. And so when we're working with spirit, how could you not be having fun and be in a state of joy? That's what I tell people. It's really that simple. If something feels bad, you're out of alignment with your spirit, because your spirit is pure love. And you want to get back into alignment with your spirit.
And so, bearing in mind that we've talked a lot about the contextualizing of these remarkable skills, this way of being, but the reassurance also that, as you were saying, that we all have this emotional barometer, this feeling barometer within us that can tune into the multidimensionality. There is more in this world, Horatio, than you dreamed of in your philosophy. How do you feel about the contemporary crises that we've just been through? I mean, I would love to say that we are post-COVID, and I will say that very daringly, because I feel the more we actually see ourselves as being post-COVID, the more we will be post-COVID. But, you know, do you have a specific psychic reading on the substance of COVID, or anything in association with it?
Not necessarily. I believe that it's been really blown out of proportion, because the statistics, at least here in the United States, are you have a 99.96% chance of recovering. Now, certainly people who are immunocompromised, the elderly, people who are sick and have multiple medical issues are to be wary of it. But now all the colleges are opening back up, and the schools, some of the schools are opening back up. And my gosh, these college kids are tested. Some of them, the football players especially, are being tested twice a day. And they're all doing fine. And so many people that even get the COVID, their symptoms are negligible, if even noticeable. And at least here, you've got a better chance of dying from TB than you do from COVID. But everybody's so afraid. Not everybody. A lot of people are so afraid. I was in church on Saturday night. Catholics, you know, they got it figured out. You go to church on Saturday night and it works. They came up with that a few years ago, which I thought was great. And I I got into the pew. The church was maybe 20% full. And I got in the pew, and I was certainly 10 to 12 feet from anybody behind me in the pew. They were on the other end. They moved to a different pew. And I thought, that makes you feel good. Good. We all had masks on. Yeah. So I think there are lots of beneficial things that are happening as a result of COVID, and we'll continue to see it as we go forward. People who've been saying for years, I wish I had more time with my family. I wish I had more time to read a book. I wish I had more time to clean out my closet. Those are just a few of the many endless blessings, I think, that have come as a result of this. Not to mention, we've all worked as a world together to help each other and send supplies when they're needed and share information. And so I think everything unfolds perfectly. Everything's benefiting us in some way, even if we can't see what it is at that exact moment. When we look back at trials and tribulations we've gone through in our lives, most of the time we can say, gosh, even though that was awful when I went through it, I'm glad that happened because ... and finish the sentence with usually a multitude of blessings.
Has anybody reached out to you remotely with COVID asking for you to interpret?
Oh, yes. Not as many as you'd think, though, because my show, as you mentioned, I have a radio show that's also a podcast. It's 2 hours live on regular radio here in the States. And then also we edit out the commercials for the podcast. And I haven't had as many as you would imagine. Handful. And a handful of people. I work with individual clients all day during the week, and not very many. I can count them probably on one hand.
And do you have any sense intuitively why that may be?
Because we hear from the media about the sensational cases, and so we just believe that everybody's having that. And most people that I know don't know anybody that has had any dangerous repercussions from having it. I know people who have had it or tested positive for it, and they've either had no symptoms or they felt like they had the flu for 2 or 3 days, and they're back to normal and it's fine. But certainly the media is going to tell us about the sensational cases because we're hardwired for fear. And that's what gets an emotion, and that's what gets eyeballs on the TVs and on the clickbait and all of that, and they can sell more ads, and it's just all part of the business model.
So this is beautiful, because it leads me to a wonderful rationale that maybe can be presented to our audience, which is a very broad audience, not just simply because of this conversation at this time, but also because so many people are tuning in post-conversation because of the video being up online. That actually the blessing of this entire period, other than that you've said about the global pause, has presented us with time to be with family, and therefore to possibly iron out or resolve any of the difficulties that have been going on. But it seems to me to be an emotional autopsy on the whole substance of fear, because COVID is perpetuated through the substance of fear. I think I shared with you that I was actually helping 2 medics who are clients of mine and have been for many, many years. At the beginning of COVID, they both reached out to me because they're consultant virologists leading great teams in general hospitals, and particularly within ICU. And they asked me if I would go in independently and just shadow them so I could provide them with energy, because there they were confronting these walls of fear. And so I found that very, very fascinating. It had its certain labor as well, because I remember the first occasion I spent a whole day, and then I needed to literally run home and throw every ounce of clothing into the washing machine and jump in the shower for about 2 hours, and then lie down and really wash out any of the debris that was with me. So if anybody listening can actually take this into their hearts, their souls, their minds, and actually use this opportunity to recognize, no, it's actually all about the substance of fear. Let me just see what people are actually writing. Ladies and gentlemen, please feel free. Oh, Melinda says, so there's no devil.
Nope. Sorry.
Did you hear that, Melinda? Nope. Absolutely. Emphatically, nope. I was told similar, when you write, please make sure you write with precision. Talks re hunting by a Canadian First Nations person. Oh, I see. So Isabel's agreeing with us. Okay. Thank you, all you people, for joining. Are there any questions? Love that, says Melinda. You see, what's wonderful about Julie is that you know that she speaks truth, but she does it with such loving ease and this wonderful smile on her face.
No.
Julie, as you go into the whole, what do I call it, diagnostic, when you scan, when you radar people, do you tune into the chakra system?
Probably early on, more than 25 years ago. How I do it, Stewart, and you know this because you and I have done a private session, which was so fun when we did that together. So what I do is I raise my vibrational level to the level of spirit, because we're all spirits attached to a body having a human experience. Most of us have heard that. And when we vibrate attached to a body, we vibrate more slowly. Our spirit does, just because the body has mass. I talk in analogies a lot to give our human minds a frame of reference. And I use the example of, imagine trying to run an electrical current through a bowl of pudding. It's going to slow it down. Well, that's what it is when we're attached to a body. So I raise my vibrational level to a level of spirit, and I'm able to communicate with spirit then. It's like, imagine an analogy would be if I turned myself into water and then I jumped as water into the Atlantic Ocean. I would be one with the ocean. So by raising my vibrational level, and again, this is what I teach, I'm able to become one with spirit. So I close my eyes and I watch a laser beam come from my body. I'm in this southeastern part of the US in Birmingham, Alabama. You would say Birmingham, right? Birmingham. I'm Birmingham.
Yeah. Birmingham. Yeah.
Birmingham. And then I watch a laser beam come over the Atlantic Ocean and hook into you in London. And then I have a hologram of you in my mind's eye. And then I envision shooting energy from your feet up through the top of your head. And it's as if I'm looking at an X-ray or a CT scan or an MRI. And three things happen. Number one, something is identified. Number two, there's some type of energetic healing that immediately begins. It can take the form of something getting added, something getting removed. I watch procedures all the time that emulate what I saw in surgery for all those years when I was in and out of surgery and in and out of hospitals, different departments of hospitals. Sometimes I see healings, Stewart, that utilize methodologies and devices that haven't been invented yet. So I'm very descriptive, as you know, about what I'm seeing, because if you can envision what I'm seeing, it's going to help integrate the healing into your body. And then the third thing I do is I look at what I call the energy field membrane. And that's the container that holds the energy that comprises our body and our spirit. It reminds me of a plastic bag made out of really thin, stretchy plastic wrap, saran wrap type material. And when I see a tear or a hole, there's an energy leak. Energy leaks are always preceded, they always precede any kind of medical condition, and they're caused by energy blocks. Energy blocks a la Eastern medicine, acupressure, acupuncture, trying to clear the block to get the chi to move, that concept. Energy blocks are caused by an emotional event in this lifetime or a past lifetime. So I envision myself going into the tear or the hole, and I'm shown a scene, and I'm given a year. And a lot of times people will remember what it was. It's not even necessarily the most traumatic thing that's ever happened in your life, Stewart. As you know, it can be something really simple. I'm going for the kernel of where that energy block started. Unlike psychotherapy, where they say, okay, we're going to talk about your life and it'll be like peeling the onion a layer at a time. I'm going for the root. Let's just get the onion out by the root, get rid of it. So I do that. And then that energy field membrane heals, which allows the body to work on full power, which in turn allows the body to regain health and maintain health. And so an analogy I use for all of this is, imagine going to a pet store and buying a goldfish. They're going to put the fish in a plastic bag of water in order for you to get it home. So if you have a picture of that in your mind's eye, the goldfish represents our body. The water represents our spirit, because the body is inside the spirit, not the other way around, like a lot of religions teach. Like I was taught in Catholic school, that's not what I perceived. The body is inside the spirit. And then the plastic bag is the energy field membrane. So if that plastic bag has a pinhole in it and water's draining out a drop at a time, that fish is going to be fine for a long time. But when enough water drains out, that fish is going to be in trouble. And that's what happens to the human body over long periods of time. So we fix the membrane, the body works on full power. The body is always going to do what it can to return to health. Always, 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 always. A tremendous capacity to heal the body. Everybody's body has.
Amazing, 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 amazing. There's something just slightly wrong odd with my screen. So when you stop speaking, you're still speaking on my screen. So it's very, very extraordinary. So I'm just using what I can radar, which automatically answers some of the questions that are being asked. One of the questions being, can we unwire the hard wires of fear? And of course, you've just gone into the absolute dynamic of what that is all about. Is there anything specific that you can offer in relation to that question? How to unwire the hard wires of fear?
Yes. I've come up with this strategy and I call it the 2-minute rule. Did you and I talk about it? I think we did.
Yeah.
The 2-minute rule is great, Stewart, because it's free and it's convenient. It works wherever your brain is, and your brain's usually with you wherever you are. So it's convenient. So here's how it works. When we have a thought, our heads are big satellite dishes and they receive and transmit frequencies. Every thought has its own frequency. Every spirit has its own frequency, which is how you want to talk to any spirit, we think of them, it tunes our satellite dish head to that spirit, whether it's somebody you knew or not, it doesn't matter. You know, who you want to talk to? You want to talk to Aristotle? You want to talk to Napoleon? You want to talk to whoever, it doesn't matter. Mother Teresa, Princess Diana. So we are able to connect that way. When we have a thought that comes in, it comes in from the ethers. Thoughts do not originate in our heads. They originate outside of our heads and we pull them in. Thoughts are either based in love, because we assign them an emotion when they come in our heads, or they're based in fear. Love feels good, fear feels bad. Anything that feels bad is based in fear. So here's the trick. We want to be able to discern, is this a rational fear or an irrational fear? A rational fear is something's going to kill you, change the conditions. Irrational fear is everything else. That's 99.9% of bad thoughts, or thoughts that feel bad. So here's the trick. When you have a thought in your head, and you know, we go down this hamster wheel, like this black hole. Well, if this happens, then that's going to happen, blah, 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 blah. We're making it all up. So if you are having a thought pattern that feels bad, you ask yourself, is this going to kill me in the next 2 minutes? It's that simple. If it is, change the conditions. If you're in the street and there's a truck headed towards you, move, get out of the street before the truck hits you. Everything else, you're in line in the grocery store and you're going to be late for an appointment. Is that going to kill you in the next 2 minutes? No. Okay. When you do that, you break that frequency, you change the channel. It's like you're in the car, you change into a different radio station. And then the next question is, how is this benefiting me? Well, standing in line in the grocery store and taking longer to get out, how can that benefit you? In a multitude of ways. Number one, obviously it's pointing out an irrational fear that's false. I like to say it's fake news, it's false. Number two, it may benefit you because maybe you're going to miss a car accident that would have happened had you been on the road by being delayed a little. Maybe you forgot something and the guy behind you will save your place while you go run and get it, and you can be back in line before it's your time to check out. I mean, it's just endless. So it works great. And the more you do it, the more it becomes a habit. The more it becomes a habit, the higher you keep your vibrational level. And we're in an attractive universe. So if you feel good most of the time, you're going to attract more good feeling things. If you feel bad, you're going to attract more bad feeling things. It's really that simple. So the 2-minute rule, golden.
This is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. That process of deduction, I mean, you also amplify the process of deduction by such wonderful story and humor and illustration, which I just love. I love how grounded everything is. Do you have that process of deduction? Do you have that on your website, or in one of the
I
books?
do not. I don't, but I talk about it all the time.
Okay. So
So
Sabine, there's your answer, my darling. It's all about tuning in the way that Julie has just mentioned it. Lots of wonderful comments about love is the idea if there is no hell. It makes such total sense. What would be your message, advice to us right now? Oh, that's so general. Thank you, Dirish. But do you have a? Can you scan anything?
I do have an answer for her, Stewart.
Please.
The answer is if something feels good, you're in alignment with your spirit because your spirit is pure love. If something feels bad, you're out of alignment. Use the 2-minute rule, get back in alignment.
Yeah.
The other thing I think that, or I don't think, I know that works so well with this 2-minute rule, and it goes against what a lot of us have been taught, which is send that bad thought love and watch it be released and do your affirmations. Well, you're still on the same channel. Change the channel.
Yeah.
When you do the 2-minute rule, it disrupts that frequency. You've changed the channel. Yeah. And then you can use that to get back into alignment, because curiosity, asking, will this kill me in the next 2 minutes? Curiosity is based in love because it feels good. When we're curious about something, we're excited. We want to know more. It's a good feeling emotion. It's really that simple. If something feels bad, use the 2-minute rule, decide if it's going to kill you. Is it a rational fear or if it's an irrational fear? If it's an irrational fear, you know it's false. It lessens the fear. It lets you move forward. I use the analogy that we're all wearing the ruby slippers in the Wizard of Oz. Or in your case, you're wearing ruby shoes, okay? And we're on the yellow brick road. And all the yellow brick road only goes forward. We create. And Oz is nirvana, it's bliss. So a brick might light up and we step on it and it lands us in a field of blooming poppies. And it's great. We get a nap and it's wonderful. Another brick, everything unfolds perfectly. Another brick might light up and we might find ourselves in a haunted castle with the Wicked Witch. And we think, oh my gosh, this is so awful. It's so scary, blah, 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 blah. But what do you find out? You find out you throw a bucket of water on her and she melts. Mm-hmm. So it's all good. So we all are wearing the ruby slippers. It's just a matter of trusting that everything's unfolding perfectly and being able to discern between a rational and an irrational fear.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So there you are, Dirish. How's that? This is so aligned with what I've already felt. Oh, how wonderful. So where people are really tuning in. Any more questions? What can we do to develop more trust that we are receiving guidance or messages when we seek to connect with higher guidance?
Great question. Again, this is all so simple. Say something to God, your angels, your spirit guides, the universe, the whole group, if you want. And I like to preface it, Stewart, with, is it in my best interest too? Or if I'm asking for guidance for you, is it in Stewart's best interest too? Because that takes care of all variables. There's lots of variables that come into play that can determine an outcome. And if you're asking for guidance or you want to have a conversation with a deceased loved one, for instance, or Aristotle, I brought him up earlier. What you do is you think of that person, again, that tunes your satellite dish head to their frequency. Spirits keep the same frequency throughout all of our lifetimes, which is how we're able to do past lives. And so you think of Aristotle, for instance, and ask a question. They're going to answer within a nanosecond. It's going to come in as fast as you can snap your fingers. It's going to feel like a thought in your head because spirits communicate telepathically. And so within a second, if you take more than a couple of seconds to think about it, that's your brain. The other thing is, if it feels good, it's coming from spirit. If it's a bad thought, it's not. That's your head. And then the third thing to remember that's really important is spirits are very literal, and they're always going to give you accurate advice, an accurate answer, correct answer. How usable it's going to be is going to be predicated on how we ask the question. For instance, if you say, hey, Aristotle, am I going to enjoy the movie? And you get a yes that comes in your head in a second. And then you're watching some movie on TV tonight and you think, oh, this is awful. Aristotle, what's up with that? Why are you telling me I'm going to like this movie? Now, he answered you correctly because you said, well, I enjoy the movie. That could pertain to any movie that you see for the rest of your life. Versus if you ask, Aristotle, am I going to enjoy watching Frozen 2 on Disney Plus tonight on TV? And you get a yes. See the difference in how we've asked the question? Both answers are correct. How usable it is at this moment in time is all based on how specific we can be in asking the question. Everybody has the ability to do this.
Mm, mm. This is wonderful. What extraordinary advice! Because after all, we are at this time experiencing this cosmic or planetary reckoning between the dualistic considerations of what is appropriate and what is inappropriate, what's accurate, what's inaccurate, what is illusion, what is reality. And so the more specific we can be, and so much of what you're suggesting is about how we can detach, feel stillness, and just observe. And then automatically the slipstream of energies becomes so accurate rather than, and particularly if we move into our bodies, it feels to me, because you're a lady of heart. This, I know you've observed in many people is shall I, shan't I, will I, won't I? And so the confusion and the indecision comes around, whereas as soon as we go into the heart, then the heart is always so directly connected with spirit and with the wonders of the universe. So people are saying how wonderful you are,
Oh,
and how perfect.
oh.
Can we or how do we seal our own tears in our energetic membrane? Why would you want to seal your tears? It's a lady, Carolyn. Any
I don't know what she means by that. See if she can expand on that question.
Carolyn, can you add to it, darling? What do you mean by seal our own tears? Why would you want to seal tears? Are you still there? Where are you? Okay, she's not coming through. And for some reason the screen is just frozen. Maybe that's what it means.
Maybe she means eradicate pain, the pain of negative energy in the energy field. Maybe that's what she's talking about.
Right. So, well, that's a great, tears not from your eyes. Oh, tears. Tears?
Tears. Yeah.
How do we seal tears, not tears, in our energetic membrane? Sorry, I beg your pardon. Tears or holes in the energetic membrane. Yeah, when, for example, I mean, you and I have talked about it, when there's a tear in the energy field.
In the membrane that is the container for the body and the spirit. Yeah, I do that all the time for people. That's a great question. I've never been asked it on my.
This comes from a very fine healer on the northwestern seaboard.
What I'm getting on that, Stewart, is that have her imagine an image of herself in front of her, and then see where the tear or the hole is in the energy field membrane and envision herself going into that tear. So she's doing it in an observer position. And then it will show, she'll get dates and times. Past lives, as you know, are so much fun because we get dates and times and stories that we can corroborate with online information. I have a British story. May I share it with you?
Oh, do, please. We love your story.
Oh, it's so fun. I have a client who is a retired CEO of a publicly traded company, thousands of employees, big deal guy. And we did a past life thing with him. And we found that he had been a British admiral in the late 1700s. And we got his name, and we got, he was commander of the Atlantic Fleet, and all of his medals and awards and all of that. And he was involved in some big battle, naval battle with the French. Well, I'm sorry, but I don't know about British naval history I just don't know that because I just haven't studied it. So I don't know, but I'm getting all this information. So we Googled it, Stuart. It was so much fun. Everything was there. Boom, 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 boom. The year, this guy's name. He was commander of the Atlantic Fleet. He was Admiral, I don't remember his name, but Joe Schmo. And it was just fabulous. So past life stuff is so much fun because we can get information that we can corroborate, number one. But number two, there's always a correlation about what happened in somebody's past life and what's going on in somebody's current life. And we can make that connection. And then as soon as we illuminate it, it eradicates any negative energy that's stuck there. It's like when you go into a room that you've never been in before and it's pitch black and it feels creepy because you're thinking, oh, what's in here? And you turn on the light switch and then it's illuminated. It doesn't cause any fear anymore. This is the same way. We illuminate it, boom. It just goes and it eradicates all the other pent up emotional energy that's piled up on it throughout your life. It's great.
Yes, I mean, Carolyn is in response to, is loving your response, like a hologram. Perfect. I get pictures of what's going on in other people's fields, but haven't thought about how I can get into the info for myself. So you just connected the dots. Yay! Right. This is what Julie does, you see. She's so extraordinary. Now, there's a wonderful guy called Gregor here. Gregor, my question, please, is it possible to feel the right, let's say, healthy spirit in the first moments when we wake up in the morning? Often I feel that first thoughts in the morning can influence our behavior, our condition to all through the following day. How do we find the right morning's thoughts?
Well, before you get out of bed, you say, today is going to be so much fun. It's going to be fun to see what unfolds. And I write every morning. And I write, this day is going to be fabulous. Basically, it's going to be an adventure. I'm looking forward to whatever. I'm going to enjoy everyone with whom I encounter. I'm going to enjoy my walk in the sunshine, that kind of stuff. And then that just sets the day off on a high vibe. It's very simple. And you can either do it in your mind or you can do it and you can write it down. And then the other thing that I do too is, and I do this at night though, Stewart, I don't do it so much in the morning. Well, I guess I do. I write it down. What am I grateful for? And I'll pick 3 things. Yeah. When I'm in bed at night, before I'm falling asleep, I use my 10 fingers. I'm grateful for my husband, my son. The left hand is usually basic family stuff that's the same. And then the right hand is fun things that have happened during the day. And that's a way that I go to sleep at night. And it just, I think it lays the foundation to come up in a positive vibe the next day.
Gregor's saying, thank you so much. What a great evening it's been and such great knowledge. That you've just imparted to us. I had a conversation with Gaga, and Gaga is convinced that her success, whether it be the disciplined endeavor of her craft building or the way that people have been magnetized to the wonder of her music and, the Little Monsters Club and so forth, she believes it's all based on the gratitude pages that she did every night in her journal, which she learned when she was 7, listening to Oprah.
Me too. I did too. I learned it from Oprah as well. What was the name? The woman, I can see her book. It was kind of a peachy colored book. I can't think of the woman who came up with it. That was a long time ago. That was probably 30 years ago on Oprah. And a British gal, actually, who came up with this, that you write a gratitude journal. And so I always do that every night and it works great. And also if I'm feeling blue and I use the 2-minute rule, part of the gratitude is, okay, I'm grateful this is happening because this just illuminated an irrational fear that I've been carrying around. And when do we get finished with figuring out all of our irrational fears? When we're dead. So we're here to create. And how we create is we know what we don't want. And we create what we do want. People say, well, I just wish I knew what was going to happen. And I just want to know what's happening. I say, well, you will someday, but you're going to be dead. So that's not going to be as much fun as being here creating stuff.
This is so wonderful. A lot of people, Gus is saying this whole conversation has felt like an energy transmission. How wonderful this has been. And Tracy is saying, so interesting. Thank you, both of you. I feel that we've done a really great job this evening, and you've been so wonderful in keeping this. I feel as though every cell in my body is filled with gorgeous mirth. There's joy rippling all the way through. And of course, these amazing life skills. So unfortunately, we've reached a time where we really need to tune out. So is there any more that anybody wishes to ask, please ask right now. You've got 2 seconds, okay now? So thank you very much for tuning in, all of you wonderful people. And please don't hesitate to revisit this wonderful, wonderful dialogue, which you can easily find in the next 2 days on the Deep Dialogues page on dianathevoiceofchange.com. And of course, tune in at the same time next week. We have another marvelous lady coming along who is going to be Louise Mitter from Hawaii, who's an extraordinary energy healer, introduced by Dirish, who's just said, bless you. So bless you. And Julie, thank you. Do stay there while I just close down the Facebook Live.